Hey y'all, what's up? So, I wanted to spend time today talking about the definition of healing. I have heard so much misinformation about what the process of healing looks like. What is even the definition of healing? I've heard mixed definitions, I've heard no definitions at all. And so, I think there are a lot of people out here who are like, I'm healing, I'm healing. And without having clear insight into what healing looks like, you have to know what journey you're on. There has to be something that says, I'm actually healing, because a lot of us can have this feel good process that lets us think like, oh, I'm healing, right? I'm healing. But are you actually, right? And so I have heard, within my private practice, within my personal life, with my clients, I've heard people allude to healing as, oh, it's just the next level of yourself, or it's just when it no longer impacts you, or it's just when your coping skills are working, right? I've heard all of these mixed definitions about what healing is, and you can even take a second to pause this video and reflect on what is your definition of healing. But I want to give you some insight, because oftentimes we look for things outside of ourselves to be able to make sense of life. And a lot of times it's right within us, or just reflecting back to us in nature, right? So in general, when you think about healing, an injury has to happen first, right? So the concept of healing, the definition of healing is that there is an injury that separates, right? Let's just look at a regular cut. There's an injury that happens, right? Whether it is a simple cut, whether it is a broken leg, you name it, right? There's an injury that happens, and this process of healing starts whether you give it permission or not. There's a sequence of events that happen in order to bring that skin back intact, right? Emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, this process is no different than what happens with a cut. There's exposure, there is bleeding, right? There is a separation, right? And so the first sequence of healing is just acknowledging the injury. And so I've had a lot of people, and even myself at times, where we just don't like to sit with the injury, right? I'll be in my private practice and people will ask me, what should I do? What should I do? And sometimes I'll reflect back to them like, I think it's just time for you to cry, right? I think it's just time for you to be sad. And I've noticed that a lot of people don't just like to sit in the injury, right? And I get it. We have jobs, we have families, we have, children that we look after, single mom, single dad. Oftentimes the I like to say black swan of the family, not black sheep. And we have many roles that we're playing. So we don't afford to fall apart, right? That's one of the things I'll ask my clients, like, what is your hesitation with just sitting with the injury, right? Whether that is loss, whether that is grief, whether it's stress, whether it is trauma, whether it is a workplace abuse, whatever the injury is, what is your hesitation with sitting with the injury? And sometimes I will hear people say, well, I don't afford to fall apart because who's going to pay my bills? And I get it. I definitely get that healing, you have to create space for healing sometimes, especially in how the world is set up. I definitely get why people feel like there's just no time to sit in the injury. And so what I'll see is a lot of people are just ready to be at the end goal, right? They're just ready to be at the place where they're no longer bothered, or it doesn't affect them, or it is what it is and I just keep moving on. But the reality is, whether you acknowledge the injury or not, it's still there. It doesn't make it go away. It's still present. It's still healing. And it's just up to you to decide, do I want this to properly heal, or do I want this to heal in a way that is counterproductive long term? And one of the things that I've noticed is that therapy is the only field of healing, right, where we are asked, or clients will come and say, I don't want to talk about that. Can we talk about something else? Or, that's too uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about that. Or that's for another day, right? We're the only field where that exists. Think about medicine. You don't go to your doctor if you had a broken leg and he says, or she says, I got to send you for x-rays. We got to sit with this a little bit longer. You don't say, no, just skip the x-ray part. Just start patching me up. If you had stitches, right? I tell this clients all the time, my style of therapy is that there is a wound there and we have to dig, and it'll be a little uncomfortable, kind of like stitches, right? Which is they're gonna clean out that wound before they just slap stitches on. In therapy, I noticed that people will ask to basically slap stitches on, but they don't want to touch below with the surface. And that is fine, right? There are therapists that accommodate this style, but it's not a long-term and longevity healing. There is no benefit long-term, right? Immediate gratification, great. You'll walk out of therapy feeling like, yes, I got some healing, but long-term, it's not beneficial. And I'm thinking long-term, right? Because what we're doing right now will be evident in the 5 years to come, right? The healing you're doing now will show up in 5 years. And so therapy is the only place where I notice that people will come into a practice or with a therapist and not be ready to actually do the work. So I think it's important for you to ask yourself when you're going to seek a therapist, am I ready to sit in the injury? Am I ready to sit in the discomfort? Am I ready to sit in the wound, right? And if the answer is no, I think it's important, one, to have that level of transparency, because any therapist is kind of gonna push you to go below the surface, right? There are some therapists who are like, hey, you don't want to talk about it. It's okay. It's fine. But then there are therapists like me who I really want to see a transformation. I really want to see the growth. And anybody who knows anything about transformation, right? You have to sit in the injury. There's nowhere else in the world that you don't sit in the injury, right? When I go to the eye doctor, I don't just say, hey, run me that prescription, right? Write the prescription. They're like, hey, got to sit with the eyes first, right? See how it's looking. Have they gotten worse? Are they the same? Et cetera, et cetera. There's nowhere in life where the sequence of healing doesn't entail you having to sit in the matter. And so I think it's important for us to start thinking about healing in this way of there was an injury that created separation, right? And us looking to come back to ourselves even better, we have to sit with the concept of accepting this injury, right? We have to sit with the concept of, wow, I'm just sad. Wow, I'm just hurt. I've had clients say, okay, Regina, you know what? I want to heal. I want to sit in the injury, but not all at once, because I got bills to pay. And so if I fall apart, I don't know if I'm going to come back together to be able to go to work. And I'm like, fine, I can meet you there, right? Maybe little by little, we're going to sit with the injury. Let this be the space where we sit with the injury week by week, or twice a week, or every 2 weeks, whatever it is. I'm going to challenge you to sit with the injury a little bit, because the more we can sit with the injury, the more that we are catering to real deep-rooted healing. And so I wanted to put this out there because I think we have a misconception of what healing looks like. I've seen people overlook this first step of healing, which is the injury. And they're at their point where they're like, yes, we're at the coming together. Life is looking good. Life is this. And then I can see the projection, like this isn't going to last long, right? This is not going to last long. That's with any wound. That's like if your doctor says, hey, you're about to have this procedure, stay out of water, right? You got to stay out of water, right? If you want the proper treatment. So when we ignore these sequences that come with healing, we're really doing ourselves a disservice. So just in summary, right? Healing, the definition of healing, right, is acknowledging that there is this separation, right, this injury, this exposure, this bleeding on the emotional, mental, and psychological level that requires a coming together. So that is just the first, acknowledging the injury is just the first part. Over the course of the remainder of the week, I'm going to post more videos about the second and third and fourth and fifth parts of the healing process. I appreciate you staying for this long. I'm trusting that this video lands for you. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to inbox me or put them below, and I will clarify anything that I said. I just want to give a disclaimer. Any information that I provide here is just a broad analysis. For more specifics, I definitely encourage you to either inbox me or seek a therapist, any of those other things to have a more tailored experience. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you soon.